My name is John Murphy, and I got the honor of doing this because my mother was born in Naples. What am I going to deny it? When I'm in Pearl River, I only talk about my Irish father. It works out well. But Bob Oreo is responsible for this happening tonight. So we want to thank you. And we want to say that this is marvelous because we are honoring a local hero of the forgotten war. So give me a hand, John. Stand up a second. But don't get carried away. You were only in combat where your life was at risk. I was in politics. Much more dangerous, much more dangerous. All right, we're going to open up by inviting the town board to give John the first proclamations, which will set the tone of the evening.
This is a very important evening. It's that important that we brought John Murphy out of retirement after all these years. But with Veterans Day coming up, it's on the November 11th, it's very important that we honor all our veterans. And when Bob Oreo came up with John Zanfardino's background, and I'll read that out in a second here, you know, it's just so moving. And it just fits in with the whole Veterans Day. And as a politician, I go to enough veterans ceremonies, and I've heard so often about the Korean War and the fact that, you know, it was a military action, not a war. All right, and so many men died in the Korean War. It is very important that we recognize them. As a matter of fact, I have two granddaughters from Korea, and I wouldn't have those two granddaughters for people like John that fought for South Korea, you know, during the police actions. So, John Zanfardino, all right, lives in Tappan. Now I can read this. Whereas John Zanfardino of Tappan was stationed in Korea from May 1st, 1952 to April 30th, 1953. He was assigned to the 7th Infantry Division, 32nd Regiment, the 2nd Platoon, and the 1st Squad. During most of the time, he was assigned to a light caliber, 30 caliber machine gun, and on night patrol, he used a carbine. Whereas he landed in Inchow in Kumwa Valley, where his squad leader, Staff Sergeant Baxter from Arkansas, was killed on a recon patrol alongside a PFC named Jones from Tennessee. Whereas they were outnumbered by the Chinese, but managed to get back to the 38th parallel. Whereas he was engaged in battles on Triangle Hill, Jane Russell Hill, and Pork Chop Hill. Pork Chop Hill was the most severe of the battles from February to April 1953, where he lost two of his close buddies, Bob Gorman of the Bronx and Marty Domro of Brooklyn. Whereas besides battling the Chinese and North Koreans, as everybody knows, the weather was brutally cold with many frostbite cases. Whereas Pork Chop Hill was loaded with landmines, running up and down Pork Chop Hill many times, it was a miracle not to step on a landmine. Pork Chop Hill was a turning point in the war. They fought for the high ground in a very costly battle. Returned home in May of 1953. It was a decorated combat infantryman's badge, Korean Service Medal with Bronze Star, and the United States Service Medal with the Presidential Unit Citation. John had not seen enough action, so when he came back, he decided to be a detective in the South Bronx. So,
almost as bad as Korea.
well, at that time, yes, I'm a Bronx guy. There was a lot of action down in the Bronx. So, therefore, Andy Stewart and the supervisor of the town do hereby proclaim November 11th, Veterans Day, honoring John Zanfardino for his courageous military service and sacrifice. And I have here Paul Valentine with me, who's a veteran of the Marines. So, John.
Thank you very much.
All right. I'd like to introduce Assemblywoman Ellen Jaffe.
No,
Oh.
we have to go by protocol. We go by protocol. As high as you are. So we have a state senator here. And even though she's a woman, she has to take second place.
I've been in politics 20 years. I haven't figured that out yet, so I don't know. David?
Great job, thank you. Well, good evening. It's an absolute honor and a privilege to be here. I'm Senator David Carlucci, and I had the good fortune of honoring John this weekend because, you know, I don't want to just say exactly what was just said by our councilman, but you heard the bio of John. You know, just always signing up when he was needed. His service to our nation, his service to our community, whether it was fighting overseas or fighting right here to make our quality of life better in New York City, in our community. And just 50 years ago, even though he doesn't look that old, he was one of the co-founders of the Rockland Lodge of the Blauvelt Sons of Italy. And we just celebrated 50 years. And I'm a recent member, just a couple, probably less than a year or a year, it flies by. But John was one of the founders. And it's just an honor and a privilege to be able to know this man, what he's done to our community. So on behalf of the State Senate, we've been able to present John with a proclamation that I was able to give to him at our 50th anniversary this weekend, which we celebrated at the Nyack Seaport, but celebrating the Sons of Italy. And so there, that organization is about promoting and celebrating Italian culture, right, and the Italian-American experience. And because of the work that John has done, we talk about fighting overseas, talk about helping out in the South Bronx, but also helping our community right here. And you think about 50 years worth of that organization, not just the social bonds that have been made, but the amount of scholarships that have been given out, the opportunities, the fundraising that's been done. In fact, today I was at the Italian Consul General's office in New York City, and I was able to present him with a check to help the earthquake victims in Italy. And that was helpful. That was helped through the Sons of Italy, coordinating with local restaurants, where we got a portion of funds, of food that was bought during the past couple weeks, donated to the victims of the earthquake. Just one example. And that stuff has happened year after year because of John's commitment, because of his mission, because of convincing other members to come on board. So I'm just so grateful to you for you improving the quality of life of our community, the residents of our community. So thank you so much. God bless. And thank you for everyone here honoring such a great person in our community. Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Assemblywoman Ellen Jaffe.
Thank you very much. It really is an honor to be joining you this evening as we recognize an extraordinary man, a man of our community who dedicated his life and gave and risked his life for our country, and certainly for the work he has done for the community. There is no question about it. So I'm so proud to be joining you. Whereas a great state is only as great as those citizens who give exemplary service through unique achievement in their professional endeavors. And whereas such service, which is truly the lifeblood of the community and the state, so often goes unrecognized and unrewarded. And whereas New York State is fortunate to have citizens who have enriched our local communities by their generous commitment of time and energy, and certainly our country, have made great commitment to our country. And whereas Corporal John Zanfardino of the 7th Infantry, 32nd Regiment, Item Company, 2nd Platoon, 1st Squad, served in the United States Army during the Korean War from November 1951 to August 1953. And whereas Corporal John Zanfardino landed in Kamwa Valley, engaging in battles with the Chinese and North Koreans through brutally cold weather on Triangle Hill, Jane Russell Hill, and Pork Chop Hill. And whereas Corporal John Zanfardino, during the Battle of Pork Chop Hill, a turning point in the war, survived by his skills successfully fighting and navigating through landmines. And whereas Corporal John Zanfardino remembers several fallen soldiers who fought beside him, including his squad leader, Sergeant Baxter, Private First Class Jones, Bob Gorman, and Morty Domro. And whereas Corporal John Zanfardino demonstrated extraordinary courage and was decorated with the Combat Infantry Badge and Korean Service Medal, Bronze Star, and a UN Service Medal Presidential Unit Citation. Amazing. And whereas John Zanfardino, from 1955 to 1975, served in the New York City Police Department, retiring as a Bronx Robbery Squad detective. And whereas John Zanfardino is among those citizens whose services has vastly improved our great state, and whereas it is fitting that today the Orangetown Town Board is paying tribute to you, John, and it's resolved that as a duly elected member of the New York State Assembly, I recognize that in John Zanfardino, we have an outstanding citizen who is worthy of the esteem of Rockland County community, the great state of New York, and beyond for his patriotism, bravery, and service to the larger community. I've signed it as a member of the New York State Assembly. And thank you so much for all you do. So proud to be honored to be given you this.
Yeah, I have it. We want to take it.
Stand here, wait. In the order that I'm supposed to go, protocol dictates we had a state senator, then we had an assemblywoman. Now the next group is the legislature, and we have both. And there are three former legislators in this room. Not one of us is under indictment. Isn't that remarkable? What an achievement. Denis served with me on the legislature, as did our next speaker, and he's going to speak up now for one of our current legislators who, what?
4. Counting them.
You were on the legislature with me? And I forgot? That's why I'm not here and you're an assemblywoman. But forgive me. I have 4 county legislators. I guess the county's not at risk with all of us being here, right? That's good. So I'm going to ask Denis to represent Vince Tyre.
Yeah, this is a Distinguished Service Award from the County of Rockland presented to John Zanfardino in grateful appreciation for service rendered to the County of Rockland. And given this first day of November 2016, signed off by the chairman of the legislature, the Honorable Alden Wolf. So that's for you also. Just getting all these things here. Here's another one.
Now, the next person I'm going to introduce also served on the legislature with me, and now he's your county executive. But what I want to speak about is that he had 2 sons that went into the military and served honorably, and he'll tell you about what jobs they had in the military. Now, Paul Valentine, a former Marines, and we hardly recognize soldiers, but on this occasion, being that the father is here, we will say we're so proud of the fact that his 2 sons were soldiers like John. Come forward if you would.
Yeah, well, let me get that out of the way. Yes, I have 2 sons, one in the military, one who served. My oldest son, Chris, served in Afghanistan, Iraq, rose to the rank of captain. He's an Army Ranger, 82nd Airborne. My youngest son, Michael, is presently serving. He's served already overseas 2 tours. He's U.S. Army Special Forces. He was convinced to do one better than his brother. So he got the Green Beret. But anyway, first of all, when I first walked in and met John, I heard the last name, and I said, "Where's your older brother?" Korean War veteran? You look like a Vietnam War veteran. I want to know whatever you're drinking, because I got to have some of that stuff. Red wine. Red wine. I'm drinking white wine. No wonder I look my age. But anyway, look, I am very, very proud to be here as a county exec, and I'm not up 4th in batting cleanup, John. Just we have that understanding. But, you know, they call the Korean War the forgotten war. In Rockland and in Orangetown, we don't forget, ever. We never forget the commitment to courage that have been made by folks in the military. John has a distinguished record in the military, fighting one of the toughest war zones we ever had, weather, outnumbered. We all know the history of it all. But John is a living history. You've heard all the sacrifices that fell around him, that he had to deal with himself coming home, wondering, how come I made it, my buddies didn't? Very difficult thing, survivor's guilt. But I'm proud to be here. By the way, Detective, John got out when I went into the department. I don't know if there was a connection between the two, but I ended up in the Bronx Detectives also. But in any event, I'm very proud to be here as a county executive. It means a lot to me to be able to speak to people about the heroism and the distinction that these soldiers, sailors, airmen, and Marines have all put forth in furtherance of defending our liberty, so we can celebrate so many good things in this country. And I want to thank John from the bottom of my heart, in some small way recognize him with the award of recognition from the County of Rockland. Thank you.
I want to ask the question, how many people from law enforcement, past and present, are in this room? Wow. So my advice to the woman is to keep your eye on your purse. No, we haven't been honoring John. My father was a policeman. My brother was a policeman. My two nephews are policemen. I think that's a very, very honorable and dangerous profession, just like being in the military. So you really deserve 2 tributes tonight. And with that, our last tribute coming up is going to be introduced by Denis.
David Carlucci had talked about the Sons of Italy, that one of the founders was John. It's a very vibrant organization here in Blauvelt, and the Sons of Italy are recognizing the founder, and who's coming up? Nick Sfraga, past president? Purple shirt on, everything.
I'm very proud to be here tonight to be honoring Johnny. I don't know him as Johnny Zanfardino. I know him as Johnny Z. I know Johnny Z 40 years. We played softball together for years. We played 60, 70, 80, 90 games together. Not once did Johnny tell me he was in the Korean War. Not once did he tell me he was in Pork Chop Hill saving people. That's a true hero. Never talks about what he did, he just does it. Not only Johnny was one of our founders, and one of our other founders is here, Curly Altamari, but Johnny was president, and he's a leader, and he set examples. He was one of the influence to get me into the lodge. Between him and a couple of other guys on the softball, they were the influence. And hopefully, we try to follow what he did and the past presidents did in our lodge. And right now, I am very, very proud of our Sons of Italy. We do so much for the community, and it's all because of guys like Johnny Zanfardino. We got a certificate here of appreciation for his outstanding service, dedication, and leadership, and that means all 3 are, that's Johnny Z. And Johnny, thank you. I'm proud to know you.
Before our tribute hero speaks, the lodge wanted me to invite all of you to go back to the lodge later for, I think that they're not serving Guinness. They're definitely not doing that. They're serving, so you're all invited to go back there and let the evening, enjoy the rest of the evening. I want to thank Bob Iorio for making this responsible. And I want to thank the town board, who is so gracious and anxious to make this evening available to pay tribute to a genuine American hero, from whom you are now about to hear.
Well, I'm overwhelmed. I really am. I have a tough time saying anything right now. I just want to thank everybody who make this possible, and Mr. Troy, and the board, John Murphy, my friend Bob Iorio, all these plaques. My only problem, I have a two-room apartment. And so my wall space is kind of limited. And I want to dedicate and I want to commemorate all these awards I have. I want to share them with all the Korean War veterans and the guys who didn't make it back, the 50,000 men who didn't make it back. Thank you very much. Thank you for everything. Thank you. Thank you.
Because I love you all, I'm suggesting you not stay and listen to the town board. Get out of here before they begin their damage. Thank you for being here. I'll see you at the lodge.
Gary.